In this very moment, you are about to step into an invisible board where every thought, every emotion, and every action becomes a master move. Life is not chaotic mystery. It is a sacred game, designed with exact rules that many ignore and only a few dare to uncover. Joseph Murphy reveals that behind what we call destiny, there exists a code, a formula, a secret key capable of turning defeat into victory, scarcity into abundance, and doubt into certainty. This is not just a spiritual path, it is the revelation of how to hack life itself, using the conscious mind and the creative power of the subconscious as divine allies. Prepare yourself, for this text is not just knowledge, it is an awakening, a portal into inner mastery. Once you discover the hidden rules of the sacred game, nothing will ever be the same. There is a fundamental truth that completely transforms the way you perceive your life. You are the creator of your reality, not partially, not metaphorically, but absolutely and structurally. Every experience, every encounter, every victory, and every loss has arisen as a direct consequence of your inner choices. There is no randomness in your existence. The idea that you are a victim of external circumstances is the first veil that must fall, the guiding principle of this book. Therefore, it is not the hope that something external will save you, nor the illusion that a higher force will decide your destiny. The principle is this: you are already deciding it moment by moment, through the way you think, feel, and choose. This life you are experiencing is not a mistake, nor a punishment, nor a test imposed from the outside. It is a sacred game, a highly precise quantum simulation designed for you to remember your power as a creator. You are not here to survive, nor to adapt, nor even to excel under conditions set by others. You are here to understand that everything you see is a reflection of who you are. This game is not played on the surface of the world, but within your being. The game board is not the country you were born in, nor your economic situation, nor your emotional biography. The board is within you, and until you recognize it, you will live reacting to the pieces in motion without realizing that you were the one who placed them. Your being is structured in three main levels: mind, spirit, and heart. Each fulfills a specific function in constructing your reality. The mind creates geometry, projects thoughts, and establishes patterns. The spirit, that luminous spark you call intuition, charts your direction, sustains your purpose, and points the way when everything seems lost. And the heart is the vibrational field where the universe's most powerful energy is anchored: love. When these three levels are aligned, reality becomes malleable, responds with precision, flows with you. When they are in conflict, what you manifest is confusion, repetition, and suffering. Throughout this book, you will not find empty promises or simplistic formulas. It is not about repeating affirmations without understanding their root. It is not about decreeing without transforming. It is about understanding with absolute clarity how the game operates and what your place in it is. Each chapter will lead you to unravel a piece of the hidden mechanism of creation within. We will demystify the idea of manifestation as a superficial desire and delve into the deep science of the soul, where all reality is a consequence of vibrational order and level of consciousness. You came to this dimension by your own choice. You chose to temporarily forget your nature in order to rediscover it. And this book is a map of return, not to a new place, but to yourself, to the creative core that sustains everything you see. Prepare to remember that you are the source of everything, that you are not trapped, that you never were, and that life is not a prison, but a constant invitation to awaken. The Sacred Game, based on the teachings of Joseph Murphy. We've noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. Your Word is Law, the Principle of Inner Creation. Since the beginning of time, even before the known universe emerged from the darkness of non-being into the light of manifested existence, a guiding principle already operated silently, yet irrevocably: the creative word. This is not a metaphor or a poetic figure. It is a vibrational reality that has been understood, albeit partially, by mystics, scientists, and sages throughout the ages. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This phrase, repeated as often as it is misunderstood, does not refer to a literary principle or an external manifestation. It refers to the power of directed thought, imbued with emotion and spoken with intention, to shape all manifestation. This is the first law of the game of reality. You are the source of everything you see, and your word is the architectural tool with which you sculpt your experience. The word, understood as expressed energy, is not limited to vocal speech. Before a sound is articulated, it has already been conceived in the mind and felt in the body. Therefore, the term word here must be understood as a dynamic synthesis of three simultaneous forces: thought, image, and emotion. These three form the creative seed, and like any seed, it contains within it a complete structure invisible to the untrained eye, yet perfectly outlined in the non-manifest plane, just as a tiny acorn carries within it the potential to become a majestic oak. Indeed, a word, emotion, thought emitted with coherence, has the power to attract, shape, and solidify a new reality over time. The creative principle operates automatically, without the need for moral supervision or external judgment. Its effect is determined by its vibrational structure, which is sustained, modified, or consolidated through what one affirms, visualizes, and feels as true. A person may pray for abundance while internally affirming poverty. They may study about love while mentally repeating that nobody loves them. They may shout their desire for success while feeling fear of failure. In all these cases, their word is not law because it is divided, contradicted by their emotional state. Law does not respond to requests, it responds to vibrations. Therefore, the reality that person experiences will not be what they desire, but what they unconsciously hold as true through their inner dialogue. I have observed numerous clinical cases in which this principle manifests with mathematical clarity. A woman suffering from a severe psychosomatic illness came to my consultation, believing she was a victim of her own body. She had tried multiple physical treatments without success. However, when she consistently affirmed, "My body responds perfectly to the divine intelligence that created it. Every cell obeys the harmonious order of the universe," and did so with full concentration, visualizing her body as already healthy and feeling gratitude for it, measurable changes began to occur in her physiology. What happened here? Simply that she stopped speaking words of fear and began aligning her thoughts, images, and emotions with a desired reality. She no longer affirmed illness, but harmony. Her word became law because it was sustained by emotion and repeated with conviction until it displaced the previous vibrational structure. This is not magic. It is applied spiritual science. The agricultural analogy helps to understand the apparent slowness of the process. Just as no one plants a seed and expects an immediate harvest, no one should expect an affirmation to take effect instantly if it has not been deeply internalized. The subconscious is the soil where these seeds are planted, and this soil is fertile for all kinds of words, whether of health or disease, abundance or scarcity. Therefore, the farmer who desires a good harvest tends it carefully. What kind of seed does he plant? He does not allow weeds to grow through neglect. The spiritual student who understands this examines their words, recurring thoughts, and daily mental images, and adjusts them to the type of reality they wish to see manifested. The greatest difficulty for many lies in not considering themselves creators. They see themselves as products of the environment, as leaves carried by the wind of circumstances, instead of seeing themselves as the cause of every effect. But this passive view of the world is merely the reflection of an inherited belief system that must be dismantled through the conscious act of assuming creative responsibility. The law is clear. What you hold internally as true, you will see externally as real. This is the essence of the word as law, and that is why the game of life begins in the silence of your mind and projects itself with mathematical precision onto the screen of your experience. Those who wish to change their lives must begin by changing their words, not just those they speak, but those they think, the ones repeated incessantly within. An affirmation spoken without emotion has no power. A visualization without feeling is an empty image. A desire without decision is a fantasy without roots. Therefore, the first step for any real transformation is to choose a word or statement that encapsulates the desired state and repeat it with mind and heart united until the subconscious accepts it as its own. From that moment, reality begins to move, not by magic but by law. The power of the word does not lie in its volume or in elegant phrasing, but in its coherence with the soul's intention. A phrase like, "I am at peace," when sustained with truth, has more power than a philosophical treatise pronounced with doubt. This must be deeply understood. It is not about convincing an external God or manipulating the laws of the universe with techniques. It is about aligning with the invisible order that already exists and which mirrors the image you carry within. The mirror does not judge, it only reflects. In conclusion, your word is the seed, your emotion is the water, your imagination is the light, the soil is your subconscious, and the harvest is your visible reality. There are no accidents, no cosmic injustices, only creation, conscious or unconscious. Therefore, choose wisely what you plant, for what you sow in secret, you will reap publicly. And every word you speak or think is an order to the universe. Make it count. Chapter 2. Come, what you sow you reap, mental geometry and its invisible impact. The human mind, when examined from the surface of everyday consciousness, seems like a chaotic flow of thoughts, sensations, and stimuli. Yet beneath this unstable appearance, there exists a principle of order that operates with the same rigor as the physical laws of the observable universe. Every thought emits a vibration. Every vibration generates a form. Every mental form eventually translates into an observable effect. This principle is not mere esoteric speculation. It is a fact supported both by millennia-old spiritual traditions and by the latest research in quantum physics. That which a person thinks repeatedly with emotional intensity does not remain confined to the subjective sphere of the mind, but instead forms an energetic structure, a geometry imprinted in the quantum field surrounding them. This structure, invisible to ordinary senses, acts as an architectural blueprint upon which future experience is built. The ancients knew this, even without the scientific vocabulary to describe it. They called it karma, destiny, or the law of cause and effect. Today, we can understand it as a direct consequence of the interaction between the conscious observer and the field of possibilities. In quantum terms, the act of observing is not passive. The observer alters the reality observed, and when the observer repeats consistent mental patterns, stable configurations are established that shape manifestation. These configurations are not random, they are geometric. Sustained thought forms a field. The field determines the probabilities that will collapse into experience. Therefore, thinking is not a private act. It is a creative action operating beyond visible limits. The most common mistake of human beings is to believe that their thoughts have no consequences if they are not immediately expressed in words or actions. This is a dangerous illusion, for it generates spiritual negligence. In truth, every thought, no matter how fleeting, leaves a trace. Not every trace germinates, but those repeated with sufficient frequency and emotion form dense structures akin to vibrational molds. These structures, which we could call mental geometries, act as invisible magnets, attracting experiences compatible with them. The mind, then, does not merely interpret reality, it generates it. That which we call bad luck, tragic coincidence, or negative chance is nothing more than the external reflection of unconscious mental geometries that the individual has been building with their thoughts and emotions. A recurrent case is chronic anxiety. A person living in a constant state of worry is generating vibrational geometry of chaos. Their mental field, far from being harmonious, becomes turbulent, fragmented, and full of incoherent forms. This mental incoherence does not remain confined to the inner world. It projects outward as disorderly events, conflictual relationships, accidents, or illnesses. And the most serious part is that, upon seeing these external effects, the individual reinforces the mental structure that originated them, creating a feedback cycle that keeps them trapped. I have met people who, upon honestly examining their lives, recognize that certain negative patterns repeat with a frequency that cannot be attributed to chance, relationships failing in the same way, cyclical financial losses, recurring illnesses. In all these cases, the common denominator is a mental geometry, configured and sustained by unconscious thoughts and unresolved emotions. It is as if the individual carries within themselves a flawed blueprint, unknowingly using it to build their experience. Understanding this radically changes the human existential position. One is no longer a victim of uncontrollable external forces, but an emitter of frequencies that structure the fabric of their own reality. This understanding is not comfortable. It implies responsibility, but it is also the key to freedom. Just as destructive mental geometries are built through repeated thought, they can also be dissolved and replaced by new, more harmonious forms. The technique is simple in theory, but requires discipline. It consists of lucidly observing the mental patterns one sustains, identifying those that generate tension, fear, or contradiction, and systematically replacing them with mental structures coherent with the desired state. This is achieved through the conscious practice of affirmations, visualizations, and internal corrections. Affirmation is not merely a verbal resource, it is a tool of geometric reprogramming. When one consciously affirms a higher truth, for example, "My mind is at peace and my life reflects that peace," they send a vibrational signal into the quantum field. That signal begins to reorganize the energetic pattern of their reality. But if, while affirming, the person doubts, fears, or contradicts themselves internally, they generate overlapping geometries, interferences that prevent clear manifestation. That is why it is essential that every affirmation be backed by a congruent image and a coherent emotion. Without these three elements united, word, image, and feeling, there is no real creation, only vibrational confusion. Poor mental geometry also manifests as inner heaviness. It is a phenomenon that can be physically felt. When a person fills themselves with thoughts of fear, guilt, or resentment, their body becomes denser, their breathing more shallow, their gaze dimmer. This is not poetry. It is spiritual physiology. Poor geometry adds vibrational weight to the individual's energy field. This weight, though intangible, affects their existential mobility, slowing them down, making them ill, aging them prematurely. Conversely, when mental geometry is harmonious, the body lightens, the mind clears, and life flows. It is literally like walking on clean ground instead of crawling through a field of mental debris. Thus, the principle is this: every thought is a seed, and every sustained thought becomes a structure, and every mental structure, once it reaches vibrational critical mass, condenses into experience. This process is inexorable. It is not a matter of belief, it is like the law of gravity. It operates independently of our beliefs. Therefore, the wise do not think lightly. They examine each thought as one examines a seed, asking, "Will this seed produce a fruit I wish to harvest?" If the answer is no, they discard it. If yes, they cultivate it with care. In this way, they construct their reality consciously, not habitually. In conclusion, there are no harmless thoughts. Each is a geometric stroke on the blueprint of your destiny. You cannot see these lines with your eyes, but you feel them in your body, experience them in your circumstances, and recognize them in your emotions. If you want to change your life, start by drawing new mental geometries. Replace internal chaos with order. Replace anxiety with clarity. Replace doubt with conviction. And remember, what you sow with your mind, you reap with your life. It has always been so. It will always be so. Chapter 3. Conscious Sacrifice, the Law of Spiritual Exchange. In the invisible fabric of conscious creation, no manifestation comes without cost. Every conquest, spiritual, emotional, or material, obeys a law that admits no exceptions, the law of exchange. This law, often misunderstood by lazy minds, states that to receive a new reality, it is essential to release the old one. No state of consciousness can be maintained without cost. Every evolution implies a prior death, a deliberate renunciation, a lucid letting go. There is no quantum leap without loss, and that loss, often experienced as pain, is neither punishment nor tragedy. It is simply the mechanism by which the universe ensures that energy remains balanced, and that the individual does not take what they are not prepared to sustain with their being. When someone says, "I want to change my life, but I'm not willing to sacrifice anything," what they are really saying is, "I want to stay the same." Because every authentic desire for transformation demands an inner transmutation, an alchemy of character, an act of conscious renunciation. This is the true essence of spiritual sacrifice, not a mutilation of desire, but a refinement of desire. Sacrifice does not consist of abandoning what you love, but of ceasing to love what no longer serves you. As the Master said, "No one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins and be spilled, and the skins will be lost. The new reality you desire cannot coexist with the old identity that blocks it. If you attempt to hold on to your habits, limiting beliefs, and immediate pleasures while simultaneously attracting a higher version of yourself, you are violating a fundamental law of the spirit. Resistance to this law is the main obstacle for sincere aspirants. They want the fruit without planting the tree. They want results without altering the cause. They want success without leaving mediocrity. They want peace without renouncing drama. They want health without abandoning self-destruction. But the universe does not respond to whims. It only responds to congruence. If you claim to want something, but your daily behavior sustains the opposite, no manifestation is possible. The reality you inhabit is the exact reflection of what you are willing to release. If you continue choosing comfort over expansion, distraction over focus, instant gratification over long-term vision, you are sacrificing your future in favor of your past. And here lies the true spiritual dilemma. What are you sacrificing today? Because unknowingly, we are all sacrificing something every moment. The one who chooses to sleep 2 extra hours sacrifices growth. The one who opts for gossip sacrifices inner power. The one who prefers complaint sacrifices the solution. The question is not whether you are sacrificing. The question is what you are sacrificing. The wise do it consciously. The foolish do it by inertia. For this reason, sacrifice is not optional, it is structural. Only when it is accepted as an inevitable law can one begin to exercise it deliberately and transformatively. I have seen this law operate in all dimensions of change. A person wants to transform their body, but is unwilling to renounce a self-indulgent diet. They say they want health, but their behavior contradicts their intention. What happens? The body remains the same. Why? Because the body is obedient. It reflects with precision the degree of coherence between desire and action. The same happens with money, relationships, and creativity. You cannot manifest prosperity if you are unwilling to sacrifice scarcity beliefs. You cannot attract love if you do not release bitterness. You cannot create art if you do not abandon fear of judgment. Every new acquisition requires empty space, and that space only opens when something that no longer belongs vibrationally is released. This is what the ancient alchemists called the nigredo, the initial putrefaction that precedes transformation. Before gold appears, the lead of the old personality must dissolve. This dissolution is not an accident, it is a decision. It requires courage to face what must be let go, and that renunciation, far from being punishment, is an affirmation of power. Because when you consciously choose to abandon a pattern, you affirm your ability to create a new reality. There is no more divine act than that. Dying to the old is opening the door to the eternal. Conscious sacrifice, then, is not suffering. It is spiritual strategy. It is the act by which you select what type of energy you are willing to carry. And here it is important to remember another forgotten truth. Everything you carry has a cost. Complaints have a cost. Resentment has a cost. Laziness has a cost. Cynicism has a cost. Each of these states consumes energy, diverts attention, and blocks your channel of manifestation. Therefore, true sacrifice is not about ceasing to do things. It is about ceasing to sustain energies no longer aligned with the destiny you desire. The human mind, when uneducated in these laws, confuses sacrifice with loss. It believes that letting go impoverishes, when in fact it liberates. Authentic renunciation does not leave emptiness. It leaves space, and that space allows the new state to take root. This principle is evident in nature. The tree does not fear letting go of its leaves in autumn. It knows that without that release, spring would not be possible. The same applies to you. Your new identity will only flourish when you are willing to release the dry branches of your old self. This is not heroism, it is vibrational hygiene. A body that does not eliminate the toxic becomes ill. A mind that does not release the obsolete stagnates. A soul that does not renounce the superfluous disperses. For this reason, sacrifice is medicine, bitter at first, liberating later. And like all medicine, it must be taken consciously, not with resignation. Those who sacrifice with fear do not free energy. Those who sacrifice with vision multiply it. Thus operates the law. Thus moves the universe. Finally, it is necessary to understand that no authentic sacrifice is ignored. The quantum field, which responds with mathematical precision to the vibration you emit, records every act of coherence. when you stop feeding a harmful habit, when you choose discipline over complacency, when you prioritize purpose over fear, the universe adjusts its architecture to your new signal. What you release, it transforms. What you let go, it fills. This is how the new reality manifests, not by accumulation, but by substitution. In summary, all evolution requires a price. That price is not imposed from outside. It is set by you through your choices. If you wish to ascend to a higher version of yourself, you must be willing to die to the self that has sustained your current reality. This is not punishment. It is spiritual geometry. You cannot occupy two vibrations at once. You either sustain the past or embody the future. You choose, and in that choice, your destiny is defined. Chapter 4. The victim loses the game, how to let go of the old self. The mental structure of the victim is the most sophisticated prison the human ego has ever built. Unlike a physical cell, whose bars can be broken with external force, the jail of victimhood sustains itself from within, fed by a narrative that seems comforting, but actually perpetuates stagnation. The victim does not create, does not transform, does not decide. The victim interprets reality as a series of external events that happen to them and are therefore beyond their control. In this way, the individual surrenders their creative power to outside forces, trapped in a vicious circle of passivity, complaint, and resignation. There, life is not lived, it is merely survived. And survival is not the soul's purpose. The mind that identifies with the victim role adopts a position of helplessness that, though painful, is functional for the ego. It allows one to avoid responsibility, postpone decisions, justify failures, and gain attention. But what is gained psychologically is lost spiritually, because every role that denies the creative power of the self is ultimately a sabotage of evolution. The victim does not transform their reality because they have convinced their mind that they have no choice, and in that self-deception, often cloaked in spirituality or sensitivity, lies the core of self-destruction. Prolonged self-pity is not tenderness, it is decay. Many individuals spend years, sometimes entire lives, trapped in stories that justify their paralysis. I was raised poorly. The economy is against me. My partner doesn't support me. It's too late for me. Each of these statements contains a mental poison disguised as explanation, but in reality, they are structured excuses that validate inaction. This is one of the subtlest traps of the game, making you believe you are being honest with yourself when, in fact, you are reinforcing the invisible bars of your vibrational cell. It does not matter what your past was, how many injustices you faced, how many betrayals you suffered, how many opportunities were denied to you. The game does not reward the wounded who collect scars as arguments. The game rewards those who, despite all wounds, rise, decide, and take the helm of their consciousness again. The creator is defined not by what happened to them, but by what they choose to do with what happened. And this choice, which may seem small, is in reality a cosmic act. Every time someone says, "This happened to me, but I choose to transform it," a geometry of light is activated in their energy field, and this new configuration begins to attract events, people, and circumstances aligned with their power, not their pain. At this point, it is necessary to recall the parable of the prodigal son, not as a religious story, but as a vibrational metaphor. The son who leaves the father's house represents consciousness disconnected from its creative center. He lives in the illusion of exile, spending energy on sterile pleasures until he finally hits rock bottom. And then what happens? He remembers who he is, and that remembrance, not remorse or guilt, drives him to return. He does not wait to be rescued, he does not demand repairs, he simply rises and comes back. That act, that shift of consciousness is the true moment of redemption, because by returning to his center, he becomes once again the legitimate heir of fullness. The Father, symbolizing the creative principle, does not punish him. He welcomes him with celebration. Divinity does not punish the fall, it celebrates the awakening. The same happens in your life. It does not matter how far you have been from your purpose. The moment you choose to leave complaint behind and return to the creative act, the entire field reconfigures in your favor. But this decision requires a symbolic death, the death of the old self. And the old self is not a person, it is a pattern. It is a way of interpreting life. It is the set of beliefs, emotions, and reactions that have sustained your identity until now. Letting go of that pattern is painful because it means renouncing the story, but it is also liberating because it opens access to the story you can create. I have seen people radically transform their existence in a matter of months simply by making this decision. A woman who for years repeated that men are bad and lived abusive relationships, one day realized that her statement was not a neutral observation, but a self-fulfilling prophecy. By changing her internal narrative, she not only changed her relational experience, but transformed her entire vibration. A young man who blamed his childhood for his addiction to chaos discovered that the more he repeated his story, the more he perpetuated it. By declaring, "It was my past, not my destiny," he began generating a new timeline, a new internal geometry that attracted unforeseen opportunities. These transformations do not require external miracles. They require an internal rupture with the narrative of helplessness. And this rupture only occurs when the individual dares to ask the key question, what do I gain by being a victim? The answer, though uncomfortable, is revealing. We gain validation, attention, excuses not to act, but at the same time we lose our sovereignty. And in the long term, that cost is too high, because the longer you affirm that you cannot, the more that geometry crystallizes in your energy field. The victim then not only deprives themselves of power, they voluntarily hand it over to the very structures they wish to overcome. Leaving victimhood does not mean denying pain. It means ceasing to define yourself by it. It means using it as fertilizer for vision, not as justification for passivity. It means declaring with complete inner clarity, "This happened to me, but I am not that. I am the creator of my reality, and I choose a new path." This declaration, when sustained with emotion and congruent action, becomes a magnet that alters the configuration of your life. And here enters the most important principle. No one can save you. There is no guru, no teacher, no therapy that can do for you what you are not willing to do for yourself. True spiritual power does not lie in following the right guide. It lies in remembering that you are the guide. The voice you expect to hear from heaven is already within you, only it has been dimmed by years of self-deception. When you clear your mind of the noise of complaint, that voice emerges, and its message is always the same. Decide in this game. The winner is the one who assumes their role as creator. The loser is the one who insists on being a victim. There are no nuances, no exceptions, because in the quantum plane, the universe does not respond to emotional deserving. It responds to vibrations. If you vibrate as a creator, you manifest. If you vibrate as a victim, you repeat. This is the rule, and though it is harsh, it is fair because it places all power in your hands. You decide whether to stay lamenting yesterday or use your energy to design tomorrow. You decide whether to continue cultivating heavy geometry or free your field through acts of sovereignty. You decide whether to define yourself by your wound or by your choice. Letting go of the old self is not betrayal, it is redemption. What you release is not who you are, but what you no longer need to be. And when you do that, the game changes. You are no longer a piece, you are the player. And that is where true magic begins. Chapter 5. Fear and Love, the two only vibrations of the soul. Every human experience can be reduced at its vibrational core to one of two frequencies, fear or love. Although this may seem like a crude simplification given the emotional diversity we experience, this binary division is the most precise in terms of energy. We are not speaking of psychological categories, but of fundamental states of the soul that determine the quality, direction, and outcome of life. Everything you live, attract, and manifest comes from a vibrational root that emanates from you. If that root is fear, the geometry you form is heavy, dense, chaotic, distorted. If it is love, the geometry is harmonious, expansive, precise. The soul, as an energetic entity, does not need complex labels. It operates through coherent or incoherent fields, and those fields are generated by these two frequencies. Fear is not simply a feeling. It is a matrix of thought and emotion that contracts the energy field. In the presence of fear, the body tenses, the mind fragments, breathing shortens, and access to intuition is blocked. Fear generates noise, an internal noise that prevents hearing the wisdom of the heart. For this reason, A soul living in fear is disconnected from its inner guide, and without guidance, every decision becomes a gamble. There is no vision, only reaction, no clarity, only confusion. From this vibrational distortion, the thoughts produced not only lack creative power, they create fragmented, opaque, contradictory realities. That is why someone can think positively, but if their underlying vibration is fear, nothing changes. It is not words that manifest reality, but the emotional frequency that sustains them. The geometry of fear is destructive, not because it is evil, but because it is misaligned. When you live from fear, your actions become strategies of avoidance, not expressions of purpose. You seek to control, evade, minimize risks, but you are not creating, you are defending. You are trapped in a worldview where everything is a threat, and therefore your energy field becomes a closed fortress. Nothing enters, but nothing flourishes either. Fear is sterile. Although it can produce movement because fear can drive you to act, that movement is never harmonious. It is like running through smoke. You can move forward, but you cannot see where you are going. And most importantly, you do not know who you are while you run. Love, by contrast, is the vibration of alignment. It is not a romantic feeling, not attachment, dependence, or fleeting tenderness. Love is the frequency of the soul when it is in its axis. It is the natural state of being when undistorted by beliefs, judgments, or trauma. Love does not react, it responds. It does not flee, it chooses. It does not doubt, it knows. When you are in love, everything within you aligns. The mind quiets, the body relaxes, the breath expands, and the heart emits a coherent signal to the universe. That signal, which may seem invisible, is in fact an activation code. The universe does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you are, and what you are expresses itself vibrationally in every moment. From love, thoughts become divine architecture. They are not just ideas, they are energetic blueprints that reality begins to obey. A person who loves what they do, loves who they are, and loves the path they walk, even if filled with challenges, is a person in resonance with their purpose, and that resonance acts as a magnetic field. It attracts, synchronizes, and orders. That is why love does not need to justify its actions. Its actions speak for themselves. A soul aligned in love can change the geometry of a room, the atmosphere of a conversation, or the life of another person without saying a single word. Love is a silent emission of power. Many wonder, how does one move from fear to love? The answer is practical, not theoretical, because fear is not overcome with logic. It is transformed through vibrational experience. Here enters the most powerful tool at our disposal, gratitude. Gratitude is a form of emotional alchemy. It is the vibrational bridge that allows a soul to move from the field of fear into the field of love, not by denying reality but by reinterpreting it. When you are grateful for what you have, even if it is little, you are declaring that you are already abundant. When you are grateful to someone who hurt you, you are saying that the pain was a teacher. When you are grateful for challenges, you are acknowledging that you are not a victim, but a player. Gratitude in its purest form is an act of vibrational sovereignty. It does not depend on circumstances. It transcends them. I have witnessed profound transformation simply by introducing this practice into the lives of people trapped in fear. A man who lived in constant panic about losing his job began writing 5 things he was grateful for each morning. Within 2 weeks, he began to feel calm, then creative, then inspired with ideas to improve his work situation. Finally, he received an unexpected promotion. Nothing changed outside. Everything changed inside first, and from there, the outside aligned. It was not magic, it was resonance. It was vibration. At this point, it is important to remember that fear never fully disappears. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to recognize it as an illusion that only has power if you give it power. Every time you choose love instead of fear, you weaken the old geometry. You are dismantling mental structures that no longer serve you. You are reprogramming your field, creating a new timeline. And even if you cannot see it, that new energetic pattern is already building invisible bridges toward a higher reality. The soul does not need you to have everything resolved to vibrate in love. It only needs you to decide to trust. That trust is not blind faith. It is vibrational certainty. It is knowing that you are supported by a greater intelligence than yourself, which is also you. It is the awareness that, even if you cannot see the whole path, every step you take in love is a step home. In the game of creation, there are only two keys: fear or love. The reality you build depends on which one you press more frequently. Fear gives you temporary security, but it traps you. Love gives you expansion, even if it involves uncertainty. You choose whether to walk the path of control or the path of trust. You choose whether to repeat old geometry or emit new light. You choose whether the soul sings or fades, but you cannot choose both. The game allows no contradictions, and in that clarity lies its justice. Because if you choose love, you have already won. Chapter 6. Don't get distracted. The silent enemy of the creator. In the art of creating reality, the greatest threat is not failure, not fear, not even doubt. It is distraction. Unlike visible enemies that can be identified and confronted, distraction is insidious. It walks with us, disguised as entertainment, information, connection. But what it does at the core is divert our creative energy. What it steals is not time. As the saying goes, what it steals is reality. Because wherever you place your attention, your life force flows. And if your attention is fragmented, so is your power. A distracted creator is not only ineffective, they are vulnerable, because others can use their energy without their awareness. Distraction is the system's most effective strategy to keep conscious beings away from their center of power. It presents itself as constant novelty, urgent news, media scandals, global conflicts that are beyond your reach, but inside your emotions. Every headline you consume, every alert you respond to, every scroll on social media is an act of energy transfer. Attention is the supreme currency in this reality, and like any valuable resource, entire industries exist to capture it. Why? Because whoever controls your attention controls your creation. Whoever decides what you look at decides what you create. This is the silent war of the 21st century, the war for your focus. In ancient times, creators protected their mental field like a temple. They knew that what entered the senses became an internal image, and that image was the blueprint of their world. Today, however, we have normalized sensory bombardment. The screen has become an altar, notifications are mantras. We live in an environment trained to make us react instead of contemplate, to respond instead of reflect. This is not evolution, it is regression. The soul cannot rise amid noise. Deep thought requires silence, space, slowness. The modern environment has surgically removed these elements. Everything is designed to keep you busy but not awake. Distraction is not only external, it becomes internal. When your mind has been trained to fragmentation, even in solitude you cannot be with yourself. You scatter. Your internal dialogue becomes a chaos of overlapping voices. You do not know what you want, what you think, or who you are, because you cannot hear your original voice. This is critical because in this game, the game of creation, everything starts with self-knowledge. You cannot manifest an aligned reality if you do not know with whom it is aligned. Identity dissolves when attention disperses. Without identity, there is no direction. Without direction, there is no creation, only repetition. The formula to reverse this deterioration is simple in theory, but demanding in practice. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is not merely being present. It is deciding in every moment which reality you are nourishing. It is an act of internal governance. It is not about leaving the world, but mastering it from your axis. You can live among screens without being enslaved by them, but only if you have re-educated your mind to obey your will, not their impulses. This requires training, discipline, and awareness. Mental hygiene is the concrete practice that sustains mindfulness. Just as the body needs daily cleansing, the mind requires regular purification. This involves rigorously selecting what you consume, what you think, who you speak with, what you see, what you hear. It is not paranoia, it is sovereignty. Every stimulus is a seed. Some germinate as anxiety, others as clarity. You decide what to plant. An effective exercise is to begin the day without opening any screen for at least an hour. That time should be dedicated to strengthening your energy field. Meditation, writing, sacred reading, conscious silence. In that state, the soul can emit clear intention and set the tone for the day. If the first contact is with external chaos, you will have lost your axis before even starting. Another principle of mental hygiene is information fasting. Once or twice a week, disconnect completely from media, networks, and external conversations. Reclaim your inner space. Observe which thoughts emerge. There lie your true questions, your real desires, your actual blockages. This observation is more valuable than any external data, because only from that clarity can you redesign your internal geometry. The soul needs space to reveal itself, and that space must be earned. It is not inherited. At its core, distraction is a form of forgetting. You forget your mission, your power, your essence. You live to react, not to create, and that forgetting makes you a secondary actor in your own story. Recovering attention is, therefore, an act of spiritual memory. It is remembering why you came, who you are when not hypnotized, what you can build when you are not scattered. This remembering is not a mystical moment. It is a practical, daily, concrete decision. It is necessary to insist every fragment of attention you give away without direction is a portion of your reality you leave in others' hands. The universe does not ask to whom you gave it. It only responds to who holds it firmly. There is no neutrality in attention. Either you are creating your reality, or you are reinforcing someone else's. Passive consumption does not exist. Everything you consume programs you, and what programs you governs you. That is why the conscious creator does not neglect their mental environment. They recognize that their soul is an antenna that must be tuned to the frequency of their purpose. If you allow your antenna to tune to collective fear, complaint, superficiality, that is what you amplify in your field, and that is what you attract. But if you direct your attention toward truth, beauty, and wisdom, that vibration becomes your atmosphere. The environment may remain the same, but you are already emitting a different signal, and that signal is a call to a higher reality. The silent enemy of the creator is not failure. It is forgetfulness disguised as entertainment. Do not allow your soul to fall asleep in the comfort of distraction. The price is high. You lose your axis, and with it your destiny. Attention is your scepter. Wield that power with dignity, and remember, every moment of focus is a brick in the construction of your new world. Chapter 7. Visualization is destiny. Live from the end. No one can manifest a reality that they have not first embodied in their mind. This principle, simple in appearance, is one of the most transcendent laws of conscious creation. It is not enough to desire an experience, nor is it enough to think about it occasionally. For something to occur in the visible plane, it must first exist as emotional certainty within you. You only manifest what is already true for you, even if you cannot yet see it with your physical eyes. And that truth is built through visualization. Visualization is not an esoteric technique. It is a basic cognitive function that, when employed deliberately, becomes the most powerful instrument of creation. The common mistake is thinking that visualizing is imagining, but there is a vast difference between imagining as entertainment and visualizing as a creative act. Passive imagination is weak, directionless, emotionless. Authentic visualization is anticipatory embodiment. You do not watch the scene as a spectator. You live it from within, as if it is already happening. It is not thinking about what you want. It is feeling who you already are with what you desire as part of your identity. The mind does not distinguish between lived experience and internally envisioned experience. This assertion has been corroborated by multiple neuroscience studies. The same areas of the brain that activate when performing a physical action also activate when visualizing that action with sensory and emotional intensity. In other words, for the unconscious mind, seeing is believing. But beyond brain biology, this law is spiritual. The universe responds not to what you ask with words, but to what you sustain with consciousness. When you visualize correctly, you emit a vibrational signal that attracts corresponding circumstances. It is as if by living from the end, your current reality is compelled to reconfigure itself to align with your internal image. To achieve this level of visualization, certain conditions must be cultivated. First, mental silence. You cannot construct a powerful image over an agitated field. Visualization requires a clear, focused, receptive mind. Second, detachment from the environment. You cannot allow what you see outside to determine what you believe inside. Visualization requires faith. believing without evidence. Third, felt emotion. If you visualize without emotion, the act is sterile. It is the emotional charge that imprints the image in your subconscious and makes it a magnet for reality. Here is a basic but profound exercise. Every night before sleep, enter a state of deep relaxation. Then choose a scene representing your desired reality as if it were already a fact. Not a grandiose scene, but a simple one, a conversation, a gesture, a daily action, implying that you have already achieved your goal. For example, if you desire abundance, visualize opening your bank account and seeing a figure that fills you with gratitude. Do not exaggerate, do not fantasize. Make it real, tangible, possible. Then feel it. Live the scene with all your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? What does the environment smell like? Stay there until the image becomes a stable sensation. Then sleep. Your unconscious mind will continue working during sleep to materialize that geometry. Countless testimonies attest to the power of this act. People who healed illnesses by living as if they were already healthy in their minds. Athletes who won competitions by training their visualization as much as their bodies. Entrepreneurs who visualized meetings, contracts, achievements, and then lived exactly those scenes. This is not coincidence. These are universal principles. The physical world is slow and dense, but it follows the instructions of the mental world, and that world is built in images. Living from the end is the key. It means you do not move toward the goal, you move from it. You are already the one who has achieved what you desire. You already live in that frequency. There is no anxiety, no doubt, no urgency. There is gratitude, certainty, direction. From that state, the actions you take are coherent with your vision. You do not act to obtain, you act because you already have, and that level of alignment is irresistible to the universe. Many fail at manifestation because they visualize intermittently, doubt in the process, or continue feeling the same as before. But you cannot sustain the old identity and expect a new reality. Visualization is emotionally moving into another state of being. It is adopting another identity and living from it. It is dying to the I that lacks, the I that doubts, the I that waits, and being reborn as the I that already possesses. It is returning to the beginning. The word creates, but that word is not just language. It is image, emotion, and vibrational certainty, a necessary warning. Visualization does not replace action, it completes it. Because when you truly embody a destiny, your behavior changes automatically. You become more orderly, more coherent, more focused, not by effort, but as a natural expression of your new inner state. Actions arise from being, not obligation. That is why those who visualize correctly do not need external motivation. They are already living their destiny, and everything they do emanates from there. In summary, visualization is not a trick or an isolated technique. It is the way of being of the conscious creator. It is living as if already, because in the invisible it already is, and the invisible always precedes the visible. Do not ask when your reality will arrive. Ask how deeply you are living it inside, because the universe gives realities not to those who wait, but to those who already inhabit their end. Chapter 8. The Sacrifice of the Ego. Stop being who you were. All conscious creation requires a death, not a physical one, but a symbolic one, a radical disidentification from the character that has sustained your decisions, habits, limits, and stories. This character is the ego, not in its technical dimension as a psychic structure, but in its conditioned dimension. The collection of ideas you hold about yourself, formed through repetition, environment, and wound. If you are not willing to let go of the old you, your true creator can never emerge. This is the most complex sacrifice of all. It is not about renouncing the external, but about undoing what you have called I. The ego is not the enemy, but neither is it the teacher. It is a tool for navigating the world, but when it becomes the central identity, it transforms into a prison. The ego fears transformation because it survives on repetition. You can only survive by remaining who you have been. That is why it whispers doubts when you decide to grow. That is why it sabotages your attempts to prosper. That is why it seduces you with logical reasons not to change, not because it wants to harm you, but because it fears disappearing. Its survival depends on your stagnation. Creating a new reality without undoing the old identity is like trying to fill an overflowing glass. It is impossible. Jesus expressed this clearly. No one puts new wine into old wineskins. The container must be renewed. You must empty yourself so that a new consciousness can inhabit you. And this process is not comfortable. It is a rupture. It involves crossing an internal desert, facing the voices of doubt, feeling the vertigo of not knowing who you are for a while. But it is in that emptiness where the true self emerges, the unconditioned self, the self that creates without fear because it is not trapped in the story. A clinical example illustrates this precisely. A professionally successful but emotionally destroyed patient came to therapy with a fixed narrative. I am strong because no one takes care of me. I handle everything myself. This statement sustained her world, justified it, and falsely empowered her, but it also isolated her. Every attempt at a deep relationship failed because she did not know how to receive. To heal, changing behaviors was not enough. Her identity had to break. The character of the self-sufficient woman had to die symbolically. Only when she could accept that she was not strong but wounded, and that her wound did not define her, did transformation begin. She abandoned the image that had kept her safe but alone. And in doing so, her world changed. This is the process. Recognize the old skin, thank it for its function, and release it. Like a snake shedding its skin, you know the moment has come not because you are ready, but because the skin constricts you. Living as before is no longer bearable. This is the true pain of growth, not external change, but the rupture of attachment to your former form. Most resist here. They prefer a known life over uncertain freedom. But those who create must die first. The metaphor of the grain of wheat expresses this with absolute clarity. If the grain of wheat does not fall to the ground and die, it remains alone, but if it dies, it bears much fruit. This is the mystery of transformation. Symbolic death is the principle of multiplication. What dissolves is not lost, it is transfigured, but if it does not die, it does not germinate. Without surrender, there is no harvest. The ego wants to control the process, but the soul knows that only through surrender does true power arise. And how does one surrender? Not by fighting the ego, but by observing it with love. Every time an internal voice says, "You can't do this. This is not for you." Remember what happened. Do not fight it. Observe it, name it. Recognize it as the voice of your conditioned character. And instead of obeying, thank it for its presence and choose differently. The ego does not dissolve by force, it dissolves through disuse. When you stop feeding it, it weakens. When you choose from a new consciousness, the old you fades. There is no fight, only transmutation. This requires inner discipline. Every day you are called to die a little more to the version that no longer serves you, to release a limiting idea, a destructive habit, a toxic relationship, a recurring excuse. To die to the impulse to explain yourself with the same old narrative, to abandon the comfort of the known. And not just once, but many times, because transformation is not an event. It is a way of life, a constant practice of renouncing the you who was in favor of the you who is being born. The reward is immense, freedom. By ceasing to be who you were, you discover that you are not your past, your thoughts, or your stories. You are pure consciousness. You are creative potential. You are the open field where everything can arise. And from there, creation is no longer a struggle, but an expansion. You no longer define yourself by your wounds, but by your purpose. You no longer repeat patterns, but generate paths. You no longer live as an effect of the world, but as an inner cause. This is the sacrifice of the ego, to stop being you in order to be you. Truly, the ego is the mask. The soul is the face, and only by releasing the mask can the light reflect without distortion. The pain of this process is not punishment. It is purification. It is the fire that consumes what no longer belongs. Do not avoid it. Enter it with awareness, and on the other side, you will find not a better version of yourself, but a new consciousness, a presence free from the past, powerful in the present, and a creator of the future. Chapter 9. Creating realities is a science of the soul. The creation of realities is neither a matter of whim nor a phenomenon subject to chance. At its core, it is an inner science, an architecture of the soul that operates according to precise principles. Understanding and applying these principles allows a human being to stop living as an effect of circumstances and establish themselves as the cause. To manifest is not to desire. Desire is merely a superficial agitation of the mind. To manifest is to align the three centers of being: thought, feeling, and action. Only when this trinity is unified in a single direction does the miracle occur, what ordinary consciousness calls magic, but which in truth is spiritual mathematics. Every reality is the result of a sustained vibrational pattern, and this pattern does not arise from a single source, but from the combined resonance of your ideas, your emotions, and your movements. Thinking of prosperity while feeling fear is incoherent. Visualizing love while acting from lack is useless. Clinging to mental images without committing the body in their direction is self-deception. Reality creation requires internal harmony, not just at one level, but across the totality of your being in convergence. Thought, feeling, and action must speak the same language, and they must do so long enough to generate critical vibrational mass. Only then does the invisible pattern densify into visible form. This principle can be illustrated with a scientific analogy. Just as a molecule requires the specific arrangement of atoms to acquire identity, a reality requires the internal order of your levels to be born. Disorder in one of them disintegrates the whole. It is not enough to think, feel, or act separately. What is necessary is to think what you feel what you act, and act what you think. When this triad aligns, manifestation ceases to be an effort and becomes a flow. The soul, as architect, has set all its plans in the same direction. Invisible geometry becomes concrete density. For this reason, scientific prayer, as taught by Dr. Joseph Murphy, is one of the most powerful tools for manifestation. Unlike religious supplication, scientific prayer does not plead or ask. It affirms, declares, and assumes as real what is desired to be manifested, doing so with full conviction that it is already done. This is the key, not to wait for something to happen, but to act and feel as if it has already occurred. The conscious mind formulates the image, the subconscious mind imprints it on the energetic field, and reality responds with mathematical precision. This is not blind faith, it is vibrational law. Scientific prayer operates on one principle: the universe responds to certainty, not to need. While you affirm that you need something, you are proclaiming lack. While you visualize it as a future goal, you place your desire outside the present and therefore far from you. The soul does not inhabit the future. The soul creates from the now. For this reason, every affirmation must be in the present tense. I am at peace. Money flows in my life. My body is healthy. Everything prospers for me. And this affirmation is not empty repetition. It must be a decree sustained with congruent emotion and coherent conduct, thought, feeling, and action, as a single word in 3 dimensions. A clinical example clarifies this. A man wished to manifest a loving partner. He prayed every night for it, visualized romantic scenes, and affirmed, I am in a happy relationship. Yet in daily life he acted from fear, self-criticism, and isolation. His thought said love, but his emotion said fear, and his action said avoidance. There was no coherence. When he recognized this in therapy and began to act as someone worthy of love, taking care of his body, going out into the world, connecting with joy, the vibration changed. Thought aligned with feeling, and both aligned with action. Reality responded within weeks. Manifestation is a natural process when the internal structure stabilizes. The problem is not that manifestation does not work, but that human beings live in fragmentation. They think one thing, feel another, and act in a contrary direction. This fragmentation causes stagnation, and until it dissolves, no technique will work. Frustration, doubt, and cynicism arise because reality creation does not respond to the intensity of desire, but to the precision of alignment. It is not about how much you want something, it is about how orderly you are to receive it. Here lies the difference between a dreamer and a creator. The dreamer lives in the head. The creator lives in totality. The dreamer imagines futures. The creator embodies them. The dreamer waits for signs. The creator generates them. This does not require exhausting effort, only clear direction. When your thoughts are focused, your emotions peaceful, and your actions disciplined, there is no vibrational resistance. Where there is no resistance, energy flows, and where energy flows, reality transforms. Creating realities is both an art and a science. An art because it requires sensitivity, vision, and dedication. A science because it obeys precise, verifiable, and replicable laws. Blind faith is not needed. Deep understanding is. When you understand that each level of your being is a note in the symphony of creation, you learn to tune yourself, purify yourself, and align yourself. What once seemed miraculous becomes normal because you are operating from your creative nature. Remember, what manifests is not what you desire, but what you are. And what you are is the vibrational sum of your thoughts, feelings, and actions. Every external transformation begins with an internal decision, but is completed by a restructuring of your energetic field. Thought without emotion is illusion. Emotion without action is stagnation. Action without direction is waste. But clear thought, elevated emotion, and coherent action create realities like a perfect equation. And that is the science of the soul. Chapter 10. The brave soul chooses its tests. The common perception of suffering is profoundly mistaken. Most people live under the notion that the challenges in their lives are punishments, accidents, or mere injustices. This view is itself a reflection of spiritual ignorance. Nothing in your existence is random. No trial you face is the result of chaos or chance. Everything that occurs was programmed at a higher level of your being, and you yourself, neither a distant God, nor an external force, nor an impersonal cosmic authority, designed the conditions of your existence to catalyze your evolution. Difficulty is the teacher, and you chose it. This is not an optimistic theory. It is a reality accessible to anyone who has studied life regression, deep hypnosis, and near-death experiences. There are undeniable testimonies revealing that before incarnation, the soul considers multiple possible timelines and consciously selects the scenario most conducive to its development. What may seem like catastrophe, loss, trauma, or betrayal to the human mind is a gym of expansion for the soul. Thus, when it is said that the brave soul chooses its tests, it is not a metaphor, it is literal. Sacred texts express this powerfully. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. Jeremiah 1:5. This phrase contains an extraordinary truth. Existence precedes birth. The true identity of a human being does not begin at their arrival on this physical plane, but long before. The soul, in its pure light state, already knew who it was, what it came to learn, and what obstacles it would face. And it did not choose them as punishment, but as trampolines toward a higher version of itself. This understanding is only possible when you stop thinking as a temporal human and begin remembering as an eternal soul. The body, environment, relationships, and wounds are pieces of a larger board. Each has a function. There are no enemies, only actors playing roles you yourself wrote. There are no mistakes, only corrections along a path of continuous perfection. The soul does not seek comfort. It seeks expansion, and it can only expand through friction. Without resistance, there is no growth. Without weight, there is no strength. For this reason, challenges are a higher form of love. Think of a high-performance athlete. Their training does not avoid effort, but increases it intelligently. More weight, more resistance, more pressure, because they understand that only in this way does the body reach new levels. The soul operates the same way. It does not flee from burdens. It designs them, faces them, transcends them, and in doing so becomes a more complete, luminous, and coherent version of itself. The test is the spiritual exercise that reveals the muscle of the soul. When you change your stance toward challenges, everything changes. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What did I design this for?" This question transforms pain into revelation. You no longer seek to escape conflict, but to extract its purpose, knowing that the game is not to avoid the shadows, but to pass through them consciously. The light that emerges from this crossing is true wealth, and it is permanent. No external possession or superficial achievement can match the depth of a soul that has remembered its power through its wound. This remembrance is activated when victimhood ceases. While you see yourself as a being at the mercy of circumstances, you remain blind to the deeper purpose of your life. But when you assume that you chose to be here, that you agreed to every experience you live, you reclaim the throne of your power. You are no longer the passive actor in an uncertain drama, but the supreme screenwriter of your sacred work. And if something hurts, it is not because you failed, but because you are in the process of shaping your soul into its highest form. This understanding does not deny suffering, minimize it, or sugarcoat it. It redefines it. Pain exists, loss, tears, betrayal, rips, but all of this is part of a higher alchemy. The gold of the soul is not formed in pleasure, but in fire. And when this fire is understood, it stops burning and begins to illuminate. The scar becomes a symbol of victory, not shame, because one who has passed through their trials with consciousness does not return the same. They return wiser, stronger, more awake. In deep therapeutic processes, this principle is evident. Patients who recall traumatic episodes often discover in them the source of their greatest gifts: childhood abandonment that awakened a vocation of service, illness that activated a spiritual path, financial collapse that revealed a hidden talent. Nothing is punishment. Everything is instruction. And those who understand this become masters of themselves. The brave soul does not ask for comfort. It asks for meaning. It knows it came to this plane not to accumulate pleasures, but to perfect itself. True freedom is not in avoiding problems, but in seeing them as pacts of growth. When you achieve this, fear dissolves because you understand that nothing can happen to you that does not have a higher design. There are no victims in the soul's plan, only creators who, from subtler planes, chose to play this game to expand, to love, and to remember who they are. And you, reader, are no exception. You are not here by accident. You are not broken. You are not condemned. You are in process. You are remembering. You are releasing layers of forgetfulness to return to the center of your power. If something in your life hurts today, do not flee. Do not deny it. Listen. Ask, what did I come here to learn from this? For if you are willing to learn, the test becomes a portal, and by passing through it, you will not only transform your reality, but also discover yourself as the brave soul who chose to come, to struggle, and to triumph. Chapter 11. Play at the highest level. Evolution, not repetition. Life, in its essential design, is neither a static experience nor a prolonged state of comfort. It is a field of constant evolution. Every event, every relationship, every circumstance is an interface through which the soul assesses its growth, challenges its limits, and confirms its level of consciousness. The idea of remaining comfortable is, in this context, a denial of purpose, because life, when understood from its metaphysical root, does not reward stasis, it rewards expansion. Those who stop regress. Those who settle stagnate. Only those who answer the call to go further, to face higher levels of complexity, access their own wholeness. The most common mistake of those navigating this reality is assuming that reaching a good life is the end goal. Economic security, emotional stability, physical health, these are often seen as the final rung on an existential ladder. But this view is simplistic and reductionist. In reality, every comfort zone is a disguised threshold. What appears as a realized destination is merely the beginning of a new stage. That is why many individuals, after achieving what they desired, feel emptiness, restlessness, or inner unease. It is not that they have lost their way, it is that they are already being called to level up. Life, like any game designed to challenge and teach, does not stop. The inner universe operates under the principle of evolution, not repetition. Every repeated experience repeats because it has not been fully understood. A lesson ignored returns, an untranscended emotion recycles, an unintegrated pattern reappears with different faces, in new scenarios, but with the same function: to help you grow. This mechanism is not punishment. It is spiritual pedagogy. What is not learned through comprehension is repeated through experience until the soul says, "I understand now. I can move forward." To understand this cycle more clearly, let us use a lucid analogy: the video game. In every well-designed game, there are levels. The beginner player faces basic challenges, learns the controls, the dynamics, the essential movements. Once they master this level, they do not remain there forever. They advance to a more complex, demanding, yet revealing level. Each level integrates the previous one and elevates it. The same occurs in existence. Every phase of your life contains specific lessons to master. When you fail to master them, you repeat. When you do, you ascend. But there is something even deeper. Each level of this existential game not only changes external conditions, it demands an internal mutation. You cannot play a higher level with the identity of a previous one. Just as a video game avatar needs new skills, weapons, or strategies to survive stronger enemies, you need a transformation of consciousness to sustain higher realities. If you are unwilling to let go of who you were, you cannot become who you are meant to be. This principle explains why many people collapse when life presents new opportunities. It is not that the universe has failed them, but that they have not updated their internal operating system. They face new levels with old paradigms. They aim to manifest expansion while maintaining habits of contraction, desiring more light but refusing to release the shadows they already know. In this game, such incoherence comes at the cost of stagnation. Life cannot be tricked. Progress only occurs when the soul is ready. Thus, the goal is not to reach a fixed point of success or comfort, but to play at the highest possible level at each stage. This implies discomfort, risk, uncertainty, but also depth, revelation, and transformation, because each higher level contains a larger version of yourself, waiting to be embodied. This is not about self-improvement in the competitive, shallow sense society proposes. It is about unfolding your deepest ontological potential, expanding your field of consciousness to embrace, integrate, and manifest all dimensions of your being. This expansion is not linear, it is spiral. Each turn takes you farther, but also closer to the center. That center is your true self, the divine being who chose to incarnate in this reality to know itself through the varied garments of matter, time, and experience. Playing at the highest level does not mean competing with others, accumulating more or making more noise. It means being willing to answer the call of the soul at every moment, even if that requires breaking structures, leaving safety behind, and stepping into the unknown with faith and determination. This game does not reward those who accumulate most, but those who transform most. The soul does not seek quantity, it seeks quality of consciousness. Those who repeat lessons out of fear of leaving the familiar remain trapped in existential loops that eventually become prisons of routine, resignation, and self-deception. But those who choose the path of expansion, though it may hurt and be difficult, discover that each leap into the unknown connects them with a higher part of themselves, and that is freedom. Not the freedom that comes from having everything, but the freedom that comes from knowing you can be everything. Do you want to know if you are playing at the highest level? Observe your discomfort. If everything in your life is easy, comfortable, and predictable, you are probably repeating. But if you are being challenged, tested, shaken to your core, it is a sign that you are advancing. The highest level is not the most pleasant, it is the most lucid. There you see with greater clarity, love with deeper depth, and choose with higher awareness. That lucidity is the true reward. Remember, the evolution of the soul is not a luxury, it is a necessity. You came here to grow, not to stay. You came to create, not to repeat. You came to expand, not to protect. Every level you traverse is an expression of your courage, your commitment to awakening, and your decision to return to the light as more light. Play at the highest level, not for ego, but in fidelity to your purpose. Because if you are here, it is because you can, and if you can, it is because you must. Chapter 12, The Final Secret. You are the light that observes everything. There comes a point on the path where all questions cease, where no techniques, methods, or formulas are sought, not because everything has been achieved, but because the root of all things has been understood. In that moment of revelation, the seeker realizes that they were never searching outside themselves, but that the entire path was a spiral, returning them again and again to their own essence. The final secret is not a more sophisticated technique or a more effective strategy of manifestation. The final secret is that you were never a character in the game, not even a player. You are the observer. You are the light. You are the source. This simple, absolute truth cannot be comprehended by the intellect that participates in the game. It can only be recognized from a level of consciousness that transcends the structure of the conditioned self, the self that identifies with story, body, name, emotions, desires. That self is a temporary interface. It is useful, necessary, even sacred, but it is not what you are. What you are does not change with time, is not contaminated by mistakes, is not lost in suffering. What you are is immutable, eternal, and absolute. What you are is the light that observes all forms as they pass. Throughout this journey, we have spoken of mental geometry, soul vibrations, laws of exchange, spiritual manifestation. But all of this belongs to the realm of movement. They are tools of the soul to operate on the stage. Yet there comes a point where every tool is released, where you no longer need to affirm, visualize, or decree, where you no longer seek to create new realities, but recognize the only reality. You are the source. There is no separation between the creator, the creation, and the act of creating. Everything occurs within you, because you are the field in which all happens. When Emmett Fox wrote that within you there is a divine spark, God himself in miniature, he was not using a metaphor, he was revealing the map of return. That spark is not a symbol, it is your true identity, not as something small and apart, but as the totality contained in the center of your consciousness. The light you are does not need to transform or evolve, it only needs to be recognized. The game of life, ultimately, is not about creating things, but remembering who is creating them. This final recognition is not an intellectual act. It is not a conclusion reached through reasoning. It is seeing, not with the physical eyes, but with the inner eye, the one who does not observe forms, but is pure consciousness. That eye does not judge, does not compare. It simply desires presence, and in its act of presence, it transcends everything else. For the one who observes thought is not thought. The one who witnesses emotion is not emotion. The one who sees the character is not the character. You are that. The one who sees, the one who knows, the one who is. This consciousness can be reached in many ways, through silence, contemplation, suffering, or total surrender. But all true paths arrive at the same point, the understanding that there was never an outside, never separation, never imprisonment. The game, with all its complexity, was only a dance within you, a school, a play, a temporary projection for the light to experience its own reflections. But now that you know this, the game changes. You no longer live to accumulate experiences, but to reflect totality. Do it with presence. You no longer struggle for outcomes, because the observer does not depend on any outcome. You no longer suffer losses, because what you are cannot be lost. You are the eternal witness of all that is born and dies, the space in which every thought, every emotion, every reality arises. And in that recognition, the search ends. This does not mean you stop acting, creating, or manifesting. It means you no longer do so from lack, but from fullness. You no longer struggle to be something because you know you already are everything. You manifest, but not from need, from expression. You serve, but not from obligation, from joy. You love, but not from fear of loneliness, because love is your natural state. Everything you do from the center that no longer doubts, and it is from this center that you can now look back and understand everything. The pain, the sacrifice, the losses, the falls, they were necessary to break the veil of the illusory self. Each fracture returned you to the source. Each shadow revealed the light you are. Each limit was an opportunity to remember that you truly have no limits, because you are not a form, you are the consciousness that observes all forms. To close this path, let us do an exercise of inner recognition. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, feel your body. Observe your thoughts, do not judge them, just watch them pass. Observe your emotions, allow them to be without resistance. Now take a step back within yourself. Observe the one who is observing. Do not define it, do not imagine it, simply be that. The silent witness, the one who has never changed, the one who has been there from the beginning. You are that, and that does not arise, does not die, does not suffer, does not fear. It is pure presence, pure light, pure consciousness. This is the end of the journey, and it is also the beginning. By remembering who you are, you can return to play the game. But now from freedom, from peace, from unconditional love. Because the final secret is not that you can create realities, it is that you are reality. You are the one who dreams them, the one who lives them, and the one who transcends them.